Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Melinda Hart. You are watching Stamping with Hart. You can find more information about the cards that you're seeing in this video on my blog at www.stampingwithhart.blogspot.com. Over there, I will have a full shopping list, all of that lovely stuff, if you want to know more about how to create these cards, including photos, if you guys like the photos. So this is a replay of a Facebook Live that I did earlier today, Tuesday, December 13th, 2022. If you like to watch the full length replays or the regular speed videos, you can head over to my business page on Facebook called Stamping with Hart, H-A-R-T, and I keep all of my full length replays there. I'm going to do a slightly sped up version, but it's pretty slow. It's not too fast. Here on YouTube, and this video is all about masking paper techniques. So I'm going to be showing basically 3 different ways that you can use the masking paper in this video. I wanted to kind of do one of the basic versions. We're going to be using Cheerful Basket to do that. I did use a sentiment from Trimming the Tree, which you guys will see in just a second. Cheerful Basket is available as a bundle option. Whenever you purchase a bundle, you save 10%. There's our Happy Holiday stamp that I can't stop using from Trimming the Tree. And then for our foliage on these cards, we're going to be using the Cottage Wreaths stamp set. This is a stamp set that is carrying over. The bundle option is retiring, meaning the opportunity to save 10% is retiring when the new catalog comes out, but you will still be able to purchase the stamp set and the dies separately. If you want that bundle savings, get it before it retires. Okay, and then the Framed and Festive stamp set, this is a retiring stamp set. So you can get this up until I think January 4th or sell out, whichever happens first. Absolutely love those if you're still looking for Christmas stamps for this year or next. So I am going to be using the Memento Tuxedo Black ink in today's video. We're also going to be using a variety of greens here, Real Red, and then for our Winter Woods card, I'm going to be using Orchid Oasis and Starry Sky with our blending brushes. And of course, masking paper is the star of the show here. If you have not purchased masking paper yet, if you have not tried it, Stampin' Up! Now offers it. We have it in our annual catalog. I first played with it on a Facebook Live using the Yeti. That was the card that you just saw there. But I really wanted to take the masking paper sort of out for a spin. I really wanted to test it out, have a chance to work with it so that I could come to you with a video and some techniques that I really loved. And you can see here, this is a masking technique that we're going to be recreating today. That card has 3 cats in it. We're going to be doing a card here in the video with 2 kitty cats, but I'll see if I can add in. I did film myself doing the sort of sample cards, so I can talk about that a little bit later in the video if there's enough time. So with these masking paper sheets, this is a sheet that I'm holding right here. If you like to see the crease in the paper where you can peel it off in the back, I recommend just giving it a slight bend. And then that way you can do your stamping along that line somewhere so that you know it'll be very easy to peel the backing. Some people, if you have nails or if you don't have an issue with that, no worries. If you do, I recommend just giving it a slight bend before you stamp onto the masking paper. So here with the kitty cat, what I am trying to demonstrate is that if you use a die, if you don't like fussy cutting, you're going to have a slight outline. And when you fussy cut, you can fussy cut right to the line. That is what I personally prefer when using masking tape, but it's a very thin outline if you choose to go with the die instead. So it's up to you. And I will be showing the difference in this video when you use the positive and the negative of a die cut when you're doing the masking technique. Okay, so a positive is the die cut piece that we cut out. So in this case, cutting out the cat, and you can use that piece for masking. And then we can actually use the negative as well if you want to isolate the cat to color. And the other thing I wanted to point out is that these cards are flat. So if you like the simple, flat, clean cards, these do have some layers to it, but I did not put any embellishments. I did not put any dimensionals on these cards. And that is rare for me. So I really wanted the masking paper technique to be the sort of star of the show, and really focus on how you can play with your stamps and stamping to get really cool cards. And I love how these cards turned out. So save your scraps with the masking paper. You're going to want to keep those because you could use those for smaller things. And then we're going to go ahead and recreate one of these cards. We're going to do the cat card with the Christmas foliage behind it. Here are our pieces here. I'm going to be using basic white cardstock for the layer and for the actual card base. I'm going to be using Evening Evergreen for my layer. And I'm going to be using, I think it's the Boughs of Holly is the layering piece that I'm doing on the live. But my sample cards were actually from Painted Christmas Designer Series paper. We are taking our Memento Tuxedo Black ink. I am stamping on the masking paper. I am stamping center to that line, so I'm going to have that backing that I can peel off. Now, for the sake of the live, I actually went ahead and trimmed out or pre-fussy cut those images. So when you are stamping on the cardstock, oh, I apologize. This is the masking paper. That was the cardstock that I was stamping on first. So you can see that line right in the middle there. So I know I'll have that backing to peel off. So it's up to you, definitely a personal choice. If you choose to use the die, I'm just pointing out you're going to have a slight outline outside of that line. And if you fussy cut it like I did here with this piece, then you are going to have an exact match, which is really helpful if you're getting into coloring and getting really close to detail with your stamping. I do recommend fussy cutting, but you can absolutely use your dies with this. It's just going to go slightly outside of the line. So that's just what I wanted to say. You're going to fit your mask over your stamped image as closely as possible so that you protect your stamped images when you go to do this layering with additional stamping. And so what we're doing is we're stamping our cat down first. And you can see here that the lower part, the paws of the cat, are on that mask now. So that mask will protect our stamp. And that's the whole concept behind having this product. You can let me know in the comments if you've ever tried masking paper, if you like it, or you can let me know in the comments if you use something else, if you use a Post-it, if you use scrap paper. I would love to hear if this is a technique that you do often, or if this is something that maybe you would like to try in the new year. I cannot recommend this paper enough. Once I really got to work with it, I really liked it. Now, here are a few things that I can tell you about it. And before I jump into that, you can see I do have a mask for my cat as well. And that is because I am going to be putting more than one cat in this basket. So just depending on how many cats you want, the look that you want, you can do as many cat masks as you would like. And that will protect your stamp as you layer. So if you really want to get into this and really have some fun with it, take some time to play and do some extra masks, and that'll be good. Now, what I'm demonstrating here is while the stamped images are protected, off to the side, that tail is going to stamp onto the cardstock unless I cover that area. So I'm taking just a little bit extra of the masking paper, and I'm protecting that spot where that tail would have stamped outside of our masked images. And that way, that little area is protected too. So whenever you start playing with this, it's okay if you make mistakes. That's the whole point of just kind of getting to learn it. One of the great things about having this paper is that, of course, you'll be able to get these really professional, expert looking cards. People will think, they won't believe that you made them, but it's actually a really easy technique to use when you have the right tools. And so I do consider the masking paper to be a tool. But one thing that you want to keep in mind when you're using this is that it's very, very sticky. So if you're doing smaller areas, or if you're doing smaller stamps like a regular standard size stamp like the cat is or like the basket is, you're fine. right? I don't really think you need to worry about it being sticky. We want a mask to be well adhered so that it doesn't move if we're stamping around it or blending around it or something like that, which you'll get to see when I work on the Winter Woods card. And I'm trimming off the little cat tail because I didn't need that. I know I'm going to be stamping some foliage around the edge of our basket, so I'm going to put that there. But what I was saying about this paper, so it has, even though it's very thin and it's very lightweight and it cuts like butter, particularly if you use die cuts, like detailed die cuts with it, don't worry about it not picking up all of the details because it's gorgeous. Now here I am using the longer sort of leafy branch stamp from Cottage Wreaths. This is in Old Olive. We're going to be layering our greens just to kind of create a floral arrangement look, which has that variety of greens to it in real life. And we're just kind of trying to simulate that. This is garden green now that I'm using with the two sprigs of pine. And this again is also from Cottage Wreaths. You can have a lot of fun with this if you like doing floral arrangements, wreaths, swags, banners, anything like that. You just want to add some greenery to it. If you're a plant lady or a plant guy, I think you're going to love this. Now this is shaded spruce that I'm using for the two holly leaves, and I'm going to be generous as I stamp these around and about. I want that pop. I want it to have a Christmas look and feel to it. And it's okay to layer the foliage without having to worry about the masks and things like that. In terms of having a separate like foliage mask, for example, you do want to mask the cats, but you can layer the foliage over top of each other is what I'm trying to say, hopefully clearly. So here is Real Red ink with our trio of berries, also from Cottage Wreaths. And again, I'm being generous with this. I really want this pop of color. I really want this to look Christmassy. So I'm kind of just putting them around and about. And you can decide how much or how little you want, or how high you want your arrangement to go. I did a whole variety. On my sample cards, I did one basket, which was just the foliage. And then I did another, which was really a little bit more dramatic with the cats inside of it. But the concept with the cats is if you have cats, they've pretty much probably gotten into your Christmas decorations. They've gotten into your tree, your wreath. They might have knocked something off of a table. I mean, they are mischievous and they love to get into baskets and things. So I thought that this was capturing something that we often see during the holidays with our fur babies, right? So here you can see I am very patiently and gently removing this mask. Okay, you want to take your time with it, particularly if you don't remove any of the stick before you put it down. On these smaller pieces, I'm not too worried about it, right? Like I don't feel like I have to do anything extra with it. But if you are going to do a large mask like we are going to do with the Winter Woods scene, the card, then I am going to recommend that you kind of put it on your clothes, or you remove a little bit of that stick from it before you lay it down on the panel, because I did find that when I did not do that ahead of time on a very large panel, like 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, for example, like a big full sheet, it was very tricky to remove. Once I kind of put it onto my clothes and kind of softened that up a little bit, that made it easier. Now, that said, you don't want to go crazy. You don't want it to not be flat, right? You want it to be flat. So you don't want to get like a real big furry sweater and do it that way. Just, right onto your jeans or your pants, whatever you have that's going to be removing some of the stick, but isn't going to have a ton of stuff sticking to it when you put it down on your panel. Now, here is an example of using the negative when you're trying to color something. And what I was trying to point out here was you might want to keep your basket mask down because the cat is overlapped. And if we're going to color the cat, even though you're using the negative, it's going to overlap with the basket. So keep your basket mask on. Just be aware of where your color is going, where your masks are covering and when they're not covering. That's kind of the biggest thing. I'm taking Smoky Slate with a sponge dauber, and I'm just trying to say, if you want to color this quickly and you don't want to use markers or something like that, you don't want to do watercolor, what have you, then this is a way to color them in quickly by using the masking paper to isolate the stamped image and protect the area around it. Okay, so this is just a different way to use a mask. So what we saw initially was the most traditional way that you would use a mask, or the masking technique, where you want to prevent that overlap of maybe one or two stamps. And then here, that's with the positive, you know, the cutout of the cat. And then here with the negative, we're actually protecting the whole area around the cat, and then using this to isolate that image so that we can color it quickly. And you can see it has like kind of like a soft look to it. Now, this isn't my preferred look. I do love Stampin' Blends. I do love alcohol markers. So I do go in and color the cats with the markers. But I wanted you to be able to see the difference and to see the options there, okay? So this is the Smoky Slate combo, the Stampin' Blend combo. You get a light and a dark in each shade when you purchase Stampin' Blends. Typically, I think there's a few exceptions. But I am coloring the second cat with blends. This is Parakeet Party Dark for the eyes of the cat. I'm going to be using Flirty Flamingo Light for the inside of the ears on this cat. And the idea here was just to show the difference about what the different coloring techniques look like on the kitty cats when you're coloring them, whether you choose to use markers or do that negative sort of fill color with the sponge daubers. Now I'm coming in with the dark, and I'm just sort of accenting and shading the areas that the artist who created the stamp had colored in these like little hairs and stripes on the cat. So I'm just blending them out, just smoothing it out, making it not look so harsh. And then I am going to go back and I am going to color the second cat in Stampin' Blends also, but I will say I don't recommend doing that. You know, coloring over ink with your blends markers. I'm not sure what could go wrong exactly, but I know that it's not recommended, so I'm going to shout that out in this video. Here, I'm just pointing out the different ways that I colored each basket. I'm using the soft suede combo for this basket that we're working with here. I did the real red Stampin' Blends combo for the red basket, the holiday basket look. And then I also did a bronze and ivory basket version when you can purchase a set that's bronze and ivory in the Stampin' Blends. And I used that combo on the everyday version that has the 3 kitty cats in the basket. And I'll be sure to put photos up of these cards in this video as well. But I'm taking this dark soft suede and I'm kind of just going through and doing a solid color, just a solid single shading in on these 3 rows of this basket. And now on the detail parts, I'm just adding in a few lines in dark, just sort of outlining those more pronounced lines from the artist on the basket. I'm taking the light soft suede marker, I'm filling all through, and then I'm going to go back in with my dark and I'm going to start adding in some thin lines with the bullet tip side, that small tip side, which is really good for details on the basket. And it's about being perfect. It's okay if they're crooked. It's okay if there's only half a line. You just want to do a pattern of lines to kind of create some visual interest on your basket. Just have some fun with your blends. Don't feel like you need to get it perfect. Just play with them, see what they can do. And you can see it adds like some really cool texture to the basket. Now, if you are a pro at blending alcohol markers, this might not be the technique for you. But if you consider yourself more on the standard basic coloring level, I think that you'll really enjoy this. I'm taking the Smoky Slate combo and I am coloring in my handle on the basket with that. And I'm bringing in my color lifter just to kind of create the look of like a very light highlight or a little bit of a glare on that handle to make it look a little bit metallic-y. So this is where you're going to see me coming in and kind of fixing up the cat. And this was only to make it look consistent so that I could use this panel on my card. I didn't want to do it where one cat was colored one way and then the other cat was colored another way. I did want to show it as an example so that you could see how you could use your masking paper for other things. You can still use the negative mask to isolate your stamped area and color with the blends. I just don't think it's as necessary as maybe you would need if you were using a blending tool like a mini sponge dauber or one of our blending brushes. And now I'm bringing in that Parakeet Party. That's so perfect for cat eyes, you guys. If you have that combo of colors, I just can't recommend it enough. It's subtle, but it's so bright, it really stands out. And so what we're going to do now that we have this all put together, I colored that cat in Smoky Slate Dark, by the way, and I didn't really worry too much about any specialty blending. This is the Merry Christmas stamp from Framed and Festive. I had done the original Merry Christmas stamp from Cottage Wreath, so you can use whatever, stamp sentiments that you have on hand. I'm creating a little bit of a shadow at the bottom of my basket since it was just kind of floating on white with my Smoky Slate combo. Light overall, just kind of sketched around, and then darker just at the base of the basket, and then blended the two out, which is why you saw me go back in a third time. This is our evening evergreen with our, I loved the way that looked. Actually, I was going to do the poinsettias and I ended up using the other side. That's the Boughs of Holly Designer Series paper. Now, I really try very hard to only use current available product in these videos so that you can go and get them and purchase them. But this is that time of year when it gets very tricky to track what it goes so fast. It's hard to track what we still have and what we don't. So here I'm actually I'm using up some of my Christmas product. This may be available, it may not. I encourage you to check. If it is available, I promise you it will be in the links on my blog. You can also go to the description box below, and that has a link to my blog. It will take you there to that full list of products. I'm using my multi-purpose glue to adhere this so you can see that this is flat. We have a few layers, but not going to do any crazy embellishments. This is a nice thin border, which I think has such a nice clean look to it. And this way, all of our stamping and masking technique that we've done is clearly the star of the card, right? So it's not so much about the pretty paper on this one. It's about these adorable cats in this little basket and the masking that we created. It's really, really going to make somebody's day. Now, these corners I cut out in the brushed metallic cardstock. You could use whatever cardstock you want for this. You can actually get these corners, these decorative corners, in the Fabulous Frames dies. So this ended up being a little bit of a product mashup for me. I used a bunch of different products because I was trying to feature the technique and bring together some cute cards. So sometimes I'll focus just on one bundle or something. But in this case, I brought in multiple stamp sets and dies and all of that because I really wanted to give you guys some options with this. So here, the Fabulous Frames dies has two different styles of photo corners. It's great for scrapbooking. That's like the typical way that you would use a photo corner. But I like using them as decorative elements on cards because I particularly enjoy framing on my cards. So that's why you're seeing that there. Okay, so that was card number 1. Now we're going to get into our winter scene. Okay, so for this card, what we're going to do first is we are going to die cut our mask. I am bringing in the Aspen Tree dies. There is a very large scene die in this particular die set. Just to show you here, as for an example, the original size of the masking paper is 5 by 7. I am trimming it down to the size of a card front, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. What I found when I had cut it to this size was I had actually still gotten some ink on the edges of my card. So instead of it being a card front, I ended up making it a card layer, which I'll go through a little bit here. This is what that die looks like. All I'm doing is making sure that the die is clean. Make sure that all of the pieces are out of the die because you want every detail that you can get on your mask. Okay, so we've trimmed our mask paper down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. This is very thin paper. It cuts like butter with die cutting, you guys. It falls right out as soon as you cut it. It's so wonderful. So what I'm trying to do is center this scene because I am going to be trimming that down after we're done in case I make any mistakes around the edges. And I'm trying to make sure that it's straight. You want to make sure your mask is as straight as possible because you're going to literally deposit this and stick this to the front of the layer, right? So now this is what I would consider a large mask. Okay, this is a mask, and look at the details on that. Is that spectacular? So if this is something that you want to know when you're testing out product, well, let me tell you, it cuts perfectly. So with a large mask, with it being super sticky, this was a question that somebody was asking me about those corners. This is what the dies look like on these two decorative edges. And when you put these through your die cutting machine, they cut all four corners in one pass, which is so nice. It also embosses in the image. So I was letting her know what the item number was on the Fabulous Frames dies, and I'll provide that information for you guys on the blog post as well if you are interested in that. I highly recommend it. Let me talk about free shipping for just a hot second. On December 15th, Thursday, one day only, orders 75 or more before tax, you qualify for free shipping. So if you are interested in any of this product, I recommend you get it on Thursday. I will have my December host code, which means you'll get a gift from me if you spend over 50 in the online store with me. And if you want details on that, please message me, email me. I can let you know what that is. And all of that information is up and available on my blog as well. So here I am putting my basic white layer down. Right now, the size of that layer is 4¼ by 5½. We are eventually going to trim it down. I'm going to remove my backing, and this is the most important thing that I can say about having a large mask. And I have said it already, but I'm going to repeat it just in case you're popping in or you didn't hear. A large mask, I really think you need to remove some of that stick. So that's why you see me sticking it on my shirt. And I'm going to do this several times. And I will tell you, even having done this on my shirt, it was like 2 or 3 times, 3 times, I still, it was a little too sticky when I got to the bottom of removing my mask. And I was very careful about removing my mask. So I would definitely say on your pants, your jacket, your top, as long as it's not super fuzzy, as long as it's going to stay flat when you put it on the paper, get some of that adhesive, get some of that extra stick off to make it easier when you remove it from your panel. The concept here is that we want a high impact design using masking paper. So technically it's just ink and paper and this mask, and we're going to create a really cool scene with it, right? And this is going to be a nice, easy, flat card to mail, no additional postage needed, right? Don't have to worry about it being non-machinable. This can go regular mail. It's going to fit in those medium white envelopes that we have that I love so much. If you like to stamp envelopes, they're so beautiful. You're going to do so well stamping on those envelopes, but this is going to fit in there just fine. Here's where we're starting. Using my blending brush, we are starting with Orchid Oasis. These are 2 of my favorite colors for an evening sky. And I just love the look of an evening sky in a winter scene. I don't know about you guys. I know we could do daytime too, but I chose to go with evening. You can consider it dusk, you can consider it night, whatever you want. So what I'm doing is I am getting some ink onto my brush. I'm dabbing off on the scrap paper, and then I am softly blending in the color. The concept here is not to rush it. Do this in layers. Take your time. I'm working the Orchid Oasis from the bottom to the top, but at the top, when I start to bring down the color, I'm actually going to incorporate Starry Sky. So it's going to be darker on the top and lighter at the bottom of the scene. You could do something all over the scene if you want, but I wanted something, I don't want to call it gradient, but definitely a slight color change from that really dark color to a slightly lighter color. And when you're playing with a mask scene like this, pay attention to those edges, because that's really what's going to create your frame. And when you have a nice crisp deposit of color with your blending brush, I mean, it just really stands out beautifully on your card, whether you're doing this on a card front or on a layer. I would recommend a layer just because you never know. You might get some color on the edges, but if you're really super careful, or if you make a slightly larger mask than 4¼ by 5½, you would be covered, right? So there are different ways to make sure that doesn't happen. Now I'm starting to bring in Starry Sky, and you will see almost an immediate difference in color. And what I was going for with this, what I wanted to show a couple of things. Number one, I want full color saturation. I want to really show you what the colors and the blending brushes can do. But even more important than that, I want to show you what the masking paper can do. And you can see it's important that this masking paper doesn't move. Look at how much I am moving and blending over this, right? So this is one of those things where if you want to learn a new technique for the new year, or if you want to try this masking paper and see if it works, you can have a lot of fun with this, and you can really experiment with this. you could turn this scene, which I just did a very simple scene. The only die that we're using for this is the aspen tree die, right? But you could incorporate deer or a scene of trees behind it or mountains behind it. You know, you could really create a scene with this and play with this. So here's what I'm going to recommend at this point. You can see, even with me putting that on my clothes, it is still really, really on that card layer, and I do not want to rip it. That was my goal, was not to rip it. So what I did was, I was afraid that I had ink on my fingers, because that happens to me every time I do a live. So I decided to fold over the scrap paper and hold the panel with the scrap paper so that I didn't transfer any ink from my finger, because I really want to keep that crisp white layer as much as I possibly can. And when you start to pull away a very detailed mask like this, because it's so paper thin and because it's so tacky, it can tear. And it's okay, because you can pull up the pieces. If it doesn't come off on one clean piece, that's okay. I decided to start with all of the corners and the edges and then work my way in, because I knew the trees were going to be trickier to remove. And it turns out that when I got to the very bottom, because I did have a few pieces that didn't come up, you know, as one, like I had a few tree trunks that I had to remove separately, I did tear it just a little bit on the front at the bottom. And it wasn't any big deal. I was very easily able to cover it with just a very basic, you know, sentiment layer, which I didn't have to do on my original card. On my original card, I got it up just fine. But whenever you're when you're doing a live, for some reason, anything that can go wrong tends to go wrong. It's just one of those things. But if I make mistakes, I want to show you that I made mistakes, because it could help you either avoid that mistake, or it's a teaching moment, right? So imperfection, but look at that scene. Is that incredible? So that is such a cool thing. I thought that was awesome. And another scene die that really comes to my mind is the Grassy Grove die. Imagine doing the masking technique with the Grassy Grove die. I mean, would that just be the coolest? So if this is something that you're interested in, consider that, right? So now what I'm doing is I'm trimming down about 1/8 of an inch on each side, so that I can get this panel down to 4 by 5¼ inches. And that is because I am going to put this on the front of a card base that is 4¼ by 5½. And that is the Starry Sky cardstock, so that we have just nice, easy coordination here. You're going to want to do an inside panel for that in basic white as well. I didn't actually show that here on screen. I'm just using my Seal Plus to adhere this panel. You can choose whatever adhesive you like for it. And like I said, I'm going to keep this clean. I'm not going to put any embellishments on it, but this would be an ideal time if you have snowflake embellishments or die cuts, or I was considering using the sequins, and I changed my mind because I wanted to keep it flat. I very rarely do cards that are flat. I very rarely do cards that are this simple and clean. So I figured I might as well take advantage of the moment. Now I'm changing the sentiment on this to From All of Us. And I'm using this little extra piece of white paper to cover my little boo-boo. And I ended up using my Banner's Pick-a-Punch just to put a little decorative edge on it. But really it's like white on white, so it's very subtle. Like you don't really know that much. And I'm using Starry Sky ink for this. And then for anyone who is interested, what I'm going to do is I'm going to include some of the coloring that I had done with the Stampin' Blends on the other sample cards. I don't want the video to run too long, but for those of you who are interested in that, I just want to make sure that it's here. And then I'll include some photos of all of the cards at the end of the video as well. But if you guys have any questions for me on the masking paper, for free shipping day, I'm going to shout it out. If you're looking for things to get because you want to get the savings, free shipping savings does not happen often, I promise you. Consider getting the masking paper, right? Where there are all of these little things that maybe we don't notice when we're shopping our annual catalog, for example, but there are so many great little tools and little extras in there that you can add on and can really, really take your cards to another level without it being overly difficult. The biggest thing about using a large mask is just patience, right? Just being patient when you're removing that mask. So there is our Winter Woods card. Again, this is our Stampin' Up! Masking paper, 12 sheets, 5x7. You can save and use every scrap for different needs that you have with masking techniques. And here I'm just kind of bringing the cards back in to show those to you. And then I am going to include just a few clips here of coloring and stamping a couple of the different images that I didn't get to do on screen. I love the everyday version of that with those 3 orange kitty cats, 3 kittens in a basket, right? That's our get well card. So, and I wish I could tell you that I put that crooked on purpose, but that was a total accident, you guys, on the everyday version of the card. So yes. All right. Here I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to jump into just a little bit of what I used for the coloring. These were the stamp sets that I was just sort of shouting out in my live, and I will have all of those products listed in my blog as well. And again, all of the links of where you can find me and more information are in the description box below as well. I do that on every YouTube video. Okay, let's go ahead and get into the coloring here. Okay, so this is the basket that I ended up doing that was the foliage only, or the floral version of the basket that did not have a cat in it. So you can see me, I'm actually reusing a mask. And what I want to say about reusing the mask is it's optional. I found when I was doing my original cards that I was able to reuse my basket mask several times without issue. But on the live, I had a little bit of a problem with it where it was peeling up. So I would say I would leave that up to you, the stamper, to decide if you want to reuse your mask or not. You might want to cut and have a couple extra on hand if you're doing multiple cards. This can get very addicting and easy in a happy, fun way. If you start getting into the masking technique and kind of taking it out for a spin and seeing what it could do. It's so cool. And I did want to make sure I had some foliage hanging off of the edges of that basket. And this is like a more subtle version where we didn't go too crazy with the greenery. We just have enough so that we have enough room for our sentiment, you know, comfortably above the basket. And you can, you know, do this as much or as little as you want. But in this version, you don't have to have the cat or the animal. You know what I mean? It's entirely up to you. So when you remove that mask, I mean, it just feels like magic, doesn't it? It's like, it's kind of the same way of when you emboss something. For me, if I either emboss a regular piece of paper or if I heat emboss something and I see that shimmer, you know, the powder turning into a shimmery sentiment, it's like magical. So whenever we do these little fun techniques, it's just so cute. Okay, so because you already saw me stamping the foliage around the kitty cats, and doing the masking and coloring the basket and the soft suede combo, I skipped ahead so that you could see the different colors for the cats for this particular card. So here I am using basic black light, which I thought was a little bit dark, but I was going to do an all black cat. But I didn't want to lose the detail from the images on the stamp, right? Like the design in the actual stamp, but the little, you know, sort of the little design of the cat hair and the pattern and the stripes. So I did bring in my basic black dark, but my basic black dark marker is kind of on its last legs. I broke the one edge and that kind of exposed the alcohol, and now it's kind of drying out. So I started just working the combo of basic black light and dark to create this cat. I pretty much used for Flirty Flamingo Light and Parakeet Party for the majority of the time with the ears and the eyes, but I did bring in Daffodil Delight once. This is the lighter colored cat, so you did see me doing this version live, but I'm doing it again here where I'm using that smoky slate combo. And I wanted them to kind of look a little bit related, but they were still distinct and different. One cat was darker, one cat was a little bit lighter, but they both have the stripes. So you could tell basically whatever little story that you want with the way that you color your kitty cats. But that was the coloring that I did for these. And I did bring in Daffodil Delight. I believe it was dark for the eyes for this cat. And I tried out the dark Flirty Flamingo for the ears on this cat, and I just thought it was way too dark. So I tried to blend it out and lighten it up a little bit with the light Flirty Flamingo. So totally up to you. I thought that just that little light touch of pink was fine. You could do gray on the inside, whatever you would want for the cat. And then here I actually brought in my Stampin' Right marker to kind of bring out their eyes and the mouth on that the cat that's in basic black light, because I thought I lost a little bit of the detail when I colored the whole thing so dark. So just by bringing in that Stampin' Right marker and kind of, redoing the eyes, the nose, and the mouth, it made such a difference. Now here is the Real Red combo that I am using on what I'm going to call the holiday basket. So you see me doing the fill color, just all over color with Real Red Light. I'm going to do that same pattern where I'm bringing in Real Red Dark and I'm coloring that whole panel with Real Red Dark. But what I found when I was doing this combo was that it looked a little bit flat. And I'm trying to do kind of that like streaked coloring where I'm kind of bringing it in from edge to edge. And it just wasn't quite giving me the look that I wanted. Like it was just kind of looking a little bit dull. So I did end up bringing in my Cherry Cobbler Stampin' Blend combo pack as well. And that kind of gave me that sort of dimension and that little extra pop of darker definition red that I needed for this particular basket. When I was working with the the soft suede combo, that really is a nice distinction of color. Like there's a really light brown and then a really dark brown. So it was easier to do it with two colors. But when I started working with the reds, I really felt like I needed just a little bit more. So now you start to see me bringing in that Cherry Cobbler and look at the difference that makes. So this is what we're talking about when we're getting into a little bit more detail blending and coloring with multiple colors, especially if you're doing the same color category, like we're working with reds here and we're playing with lighter and darker tones. Cherry Cobbler is a much deeper red than Real Red. But now I'm kind of going into, again, I'm discovering that my tip is a little bit dry on that side, but it was fine on the brush tip side. So that's what I decided to use. And you see me sort of bringing in those dark streaks and lines again. This was something that I really wanted to do on this basket. And I really love the way that it turned out, like the way that it looks on each different version. And this is why I wanted to include the coloring. For those of you who are really into, coloring or alcohol marker blending, particularly as we are coming up on the holidays. I realize, I'm really working with holiday cards here, but you might be done with your holiday cards and you might be doing a basket for a different reason. You might want to get the stamp set out. But when we're on vacation, if you're on holiday, if you have time off, if your kids are home from school, you might get an extra 15 minutes or an extra 20 minutes to get your markers out and do something fun like this. Just give something a try. Like one of the things that I notice because I make these YouTube videos, views tend to go up when people are off. So when people are home and Christmas is over and everybody's relaxing and the house is clean and you don't have to worry about cooking and maybe you're eating leftovers, you might want to just turn on a really good craft video or turn on a card that inspires you on the TV and then put a piece of cardstock in front of you and just play with your Stampin' Blends. That is something that I like to do when I get the extra time. And that is our Real Red basket with Cherry Cobbler. Okay, and now here come the three kitty cats, the three kittens in the basket. And I ended up using the Awash and Beauty Designer Series paper for these. But in terms of the coloring, I wanted orange cats. And I did Pale Papaya. I did the combo. So you see me filling in all three cats just with a fill color of Pale Papaya Light. And what I decided to do for this particular combo was I brought in a darker color. I skipped over Pumpkin Pie, and I think it was Cajun Craze that I ended up using. I can't remember if it was Calypso Coral or Cajun Craze. I think it was Cajun Craze. It's a deeper, almost like a brownish orange. And I felt like that was a little bit more realistic. I mean, we want them to be cutesy, right? Like they don't have to be perfect nature color. But I did want to do a combo it was like either fall or Halloween. I had did a version of this cat and I did use Pumpkin Pie and I just felt like it was too orange. Like it was perfect for that particular card. But for these, I wanted to do a softer, sort of a springy version of the orange for the kitty cats. So that was why I chose Pale Papaya, and then you'll see me bringing in this darker color. So this was the light in that combo. And I'm going in and I'm doing the same thing that I've done with the cats, where I'm focusing on the artwork that was there from the, the artist who created the stamp. And now I'm going in and I'm blending through. So just kind of creating those layers. With orange cats, the stripes are a little bit more prominent, right? Especially like at the top of the head and around the sides. And then in the areas where our kitty cats overlap, which of course is our masking technique at its best, I wanted to have a little extra shadow there. So I did kind of outline these cats a little bit, particularly around his tail as well. The center kitty cat is the only one whose tail we see. And then I really wanted to make sure that it looked uniform in this case. Like we wanted them to look like they were all from the same litter. And I just thought it was so cute, like 3 little sibling kitty cats in a basket. I think that so many people would love a card like this. So many of us absolutely adore our fur babies. And this card just really kind of creates a very familiar scene, I think. And so rarely do we get to have all 3, right, from the same litter. Usually it's just 1 or 2 cats, or at least that's the way it was for me when I was growing up. You can let me know in the comments if you have a whole family of cats. And here we're bringing in that Parakeet Party Dark for all of the eyes, Flirty Flamingo for all of the ears. And then this basket that we're going to be coloring is going to be in the bronze and ivory combo. This is Pool Party Light, and this was something that I had learned watching Gina K, where she just did like a very, very light blue or a greenish color to kind of add some dimension between the colored image and then the white background. So this is an optional thing, but I absolutely love the look of that, and I decided to give a little bit of a springy look, just that real soft Pool Party Light outline just around the kitty cats. Now this is bronze, and what I'm trying to do is bring in like a textured type of coloring here. I'm adding in the ivory, and you can see there is a significant difference in color between the ivory and the bronze. And I find that the Stampin' Blend combos that have more contrast work better with this basket than those that are very similar in color. So this one I think worked better in the combo than the Real Red combo, because the Real Red combo is very similar in color. And that's why I had to bring in another duo like Cherry Cobbler. And I mean, you can get very fancy and technical with this in terms of how you color and have your highlight and your shadow and all of that. But again, this is more basic. This is just about creating some texture for our basket, having some fun with it, having some visual interest there, and working with the actual art on the stamp itself. So I'm coming back in with bronze. I'm layering between bronze and ivory throughout this whole coloring process. And I love the way that this basket turned out. And I wanted this basket to be lighter because this is our Get Well card. I wanted it to kind of have an overall lighter color, springy feel. And I'm doing that shadow at the bottom of the basket again in Smoky Slate, the combo, the light all over, and then the darker color just around the base to kind of give that some dimension as well. And then we're going to go ahead and finish up our cards. So like I said, this was a Wash in Beauty that I did, and then it was a Calypso Coral layer, I think. With a basic white base. And I used the Get Well sentiment from Cheerful Basket, which is where both the basket and the kitty cats are from. So you guys can see the coloring technique here, but I love the way that that turned out. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up today's video. For those of you who are still here, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you. Not everybody makes it to the end of a video like this. I'm going to put the pictures up of the finished projects on the screen now. I didn't show every single step of putting all of these cards together, but you get the idea. And like I said, I will have that full product list on my blog below. If you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, I would love to have you subscribe. Head over to my blog if you want to learn more about the free shipping that we are going to have on Thursday, December 15th, 1 day only, on qualifying orders of $75 or more before tax. If you click the notification bell when you subscribe to my channel, you will get notified every time I do a new video. I do new videos each week. And if you stay tuned, you will see the next video. All right, thank you so much. And if I don't get to see you before, I do think I will at least have 1 or 2 more videos out. But just in case I don't, have a very happy holiday, safe, Merry Christmas.